This week, 48 Hours tells the story of a son willing to tear apart his family, if only to find justice for his mother. The boy was convinced that his mother was murdered by his pediatrician father. And as Susan Spencer shows us, he vowed to do whatever he could to get his father convicted. She's been following this case for 4 years, has Susan. Here's a preview of her report.
Oldest son Pellawall was there front and center and witnessed his father enter the courtroom dressed in prison blues, handcuffs, and leg shackles.
After the divorce, he became more confrontational with my mother.
So please step forward and tell me anything you'd like me to consider in making my sentencing decision today.
Pella told the crowded courtroom how his father's fatal decision had caused so much damage.
The fact that my father clearly premeditated my own mother's murder, making the incomprehensible judgment that she was not fit to live, is something I will have to carry for the rest of my life.
On September 27, 2011, Uta's boyfriend, Nils Abramson, found her lifeless body drowned in her bathtub.
Tapped on the door and said hello, hello, and opened the door, and there she was underwater.
Uta had superficial knife wounds and a high level of the anti-anxiety medication Xanax in her system. Did Dr. Wall somehow force her to take it, or did she take it herself?
She was at about twice a therapeutic level. It was clearly enough to make her drowsy, maybe render her unconscious. And if she's trying to get into a bathtub, it's not that hard to drown.
Dr. Wall's account of his time was sketchy. He had an eye injury that night that he blamed on his dog.
As I thought about my dad's behavior before and after her death, it became more and more apparent to me that he was responsible for killing her.
If you'd like to come to the podium, I'd be happy to hear anything that he would like to say at this time.
Johnny Wall, the former pediatrician, finally would break his silence with a message for his children.
I can no longer assist them and support them in achieving their hopes and dreams, nor can I comfort them in their times of need. I can only hope that they know how much I love them, unconditionally, absolutely.
And he emphatically denied any involvement in his ex-wife's death.
I did not kill Uta. I am innocent of this crime.
What the jury found was a chilling and despicable crime.
Pella does not expect his father ever will admit to killing his mother.
He's created his own truth, and I don't think that he's necessarily going to change that.
Senior executive producer Susan Zirinsky, our beloved Z, here to answer a few questions now ahead of tomorrow night's show. And so much to get to here. But first, this young man at the center of it all, Pellawall, what compelled him to come forward? What allowed him to do everything that it would appear now he's done?
Look, I think this was a marriage that had fallen apart, but these are two remarkably successful people. You know, Johnny Wall was a well-known pediatrician, and Uta was a very noted scientist. She actually had just come through with a dramatic breakthrough on childhood leukemia and how to treat it. So these were two really important people. I think that Pella had seen this marriage dissolve. There was a friend actually who in the trial was talked to and said, at one point, Johnny Wall said maybe life would be easier without Uta around. What would happen if she wasn't around? But this son, this very smart, personable kid, saw the dissolving of a marriage. The marriage had fallen apart. Uta might have had a relationship with someone else.
So he was, to a degree, a husband scorned?
He was a husband scorned, but it was, and at one point we even discussed amongst ourselves, was there a jealousy that she was becoming so well known because of her discovery?
Yeah.
But you know, that's not really been proven. But really from the get-go, the dissolving of the marriage, he became unhinged, and that's what the kids saw. His behavior was unhinged. There was one point after the death that he came home, he was living with the father, as were his siblings, that the father was curled up on the bed in a fetal position saying, "They think I did it, they think I did it." It's as if the child became the parent. there was an incident where after the murder, after the crime had happened, or at that point it was still undetermined, where the father confronted Pella and the siblings who were out at a like a Jamba Juice, and it was caught on audio tape. And it's the sound of not a well-known pediatrician who was a stellar member of the community, but it was a desperate man. So, you know, did the dissolving of a marriage, did he feel the failure? It was a long time coming, and this kid gave up everything, including his inheritance, to see this legal case through.
And it was in part his standing in the community, perhaps, that kept the investigation, at least initially, really at where it had ended, something short of charges,
Absolutely.
as we saw, for murder. So it was Pella who moved that crucial next step forward.
This would not have happened if this young man was not on a mission. You know, the Johnny Wall's family really said, look, we love him, but he's a confused kid. They even accused him of liking the limelight. A very close friend of Pella's, a kid whose parents kind of have taken them in, and the mom especially, she really was a support mechanism and really supported him in his efforts. They didn't help him financially, but they saw this kid in his heart, and he knew it would tear the family apart. He knew he had siblings. He was worried about the siblings.
Are they on board, if you will?
They're younger. They were younger at the time, so it was really Pella's mission. The family feels he was misled by people, almost hearkening back to kind of that era where kids were talked about when illegal things were supposedly happening in daycare centers. It's that mentality of manipulation of a kid's mind.
And with regard to the evidence used to convict, you know, we actually heard in the end of that preview piece something that a lot of folks have said for now decades about O.J. Simpson, that there is simply a part of Dr. Wall who will forever believe he did not do this crime, whether or not he did it.
It's pretty compelling watching him, you know.
It really is. Was the evidence, how much smoke was there coming out of the gun?
Well, I think there was an enormous amount of the medication in her system. And because her current boyfriend and people around her said that this was not a woman that appeared depressed, this was a woman that was on a scientific breakthrough.
Yeah.
You know, she wasn't in a hovel, like, you know, licking her wounds. She was on the brink of a major, having done it. So she was going to see the benefit of this childhood leukemia solve that she had come up with. So no indication was that she was suicidal. You know, we have a second hour. This is our first hour at 9 o'clock. And the second hour is it's another family murder, and it happened upstate New York. And Axelrod is the correspondent. He also an upstanding member of the community, and did his wife die in an accident or was she murdered? And this one involves the daughter in trying to prove his innocence. So here are two doctors, unbelievable standing in the communities. Like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
Like, what prevents people from cracking or thinking that they can get away with it?
And kids who have to face, and especially in Pella's case, really making himself an orphan, if you will, in the end.
He is. I mean, you know, everything is lost. And in Pella's case, he's got siblings, and he's almost become a father figure for them. In the case upstate New York with Dr. Newlander and his wife Leslie, the family is totally ripped apart because they believe in their father's innocence. It's the opposite. They believe their father's innocent. Pella Wall got his father convicted. It's a pretty dynamic 2 hours
and
for us.
And 2 very compelling hours to watch. Again, Z, we appreciate it as always.
Appreciate being here.
And of course, it's Susan Spencer's full report, Father and Son, at 9, 8 Central. As Susan mentioned, part of a double, it's just Z. It's a doubleheader. The Doctor's Daughter, that will immediately follow that first hour, and it can all be watched only on CBS.